The morning sun rose over New Jeju Colony like any other day. Children ran through the streets laughing while their parents opened shops and prepared for another day of work. The smell of fresh bread drifted from the bakeries. Farmers loaded their trucks with vegetables, heading to the central market. Everything was peaceful and normal. Corporal Han Minho stood at his post near the colony's eastern gate. He was young, barely 23 years old, and honestly found guard duty quite boring. Nothing ever happened on New Jeju. The colony had been established for 15 years and had never seen any trouble. He checked his watch and sighed. 4 more hours until his shift ended. Governor Park Ji-won was in her office reviewing agricultural reports. New Jeju had exceeded production quotas again this year. She smiled as she signed the documents. Her daughter would be coming home from university next month. Park Ji-won had already planned a big family dinner to celebrate. Life was good out here on the frontier. Dr. Kwon Eun-ji was treating a boy with a broken arm at the medical center. The child had fallen from a tree while playing. She set the bone carefully while joking with him to keep his spirits up. His mother sat nearby, worried but relieved it was nothing serious. Just another ordinary day at the clinic. Then the alarms began to scream. Minho looked up at the sky and felt his blood turn to ice. Massive ships were descending through the clouds. They were unlike anything he had ever seen. Dark metal hulls covered in weapons. Dozens of them. The ships moved into position above the colony and just waited there like birds of prey. Governor Park rushed to the communication center. She had never seen ships like these before. New Jeju was a peaceful colony. They had no enemies. She opened a channel to the vessels. This is Governor Park Ji-won of New Jeju Colony. Please identify yourselves. How can we help you? A face appeared on the screen. Reptilian features with cold yellow eyes. The creature's mouth twisted into something that might have been a smile but showed too many teeth. I am Commander Vroth of the Velkari Empire. This world now belongs to us. You will surrender all resources immediately. You will pay tribute. You will obey. Park Ji-won felt confusion wash over her. I'm sorry. There must be some misunderstanding. We're a civilian colony. We have no military value. Can we discuss this peacefully? Perhaps we can arrange a meeting with Earth's government to resolve whatever issue. The transmission cut off. Minho watched in horror as lights began to glow on the underside of the nearest Volcari ship. He knew what was coming. He had seen videos during training. He grabbed his radio. This is Corporal Han Minho to all units. Take cover. They're going to... The sky turned white. The orbital strike hit the main settlement square. 3,000 people were there. The market. The schools. The administrative buildings. Everything vaporized in an instant. The shockwave threw Minho 30 meters backward. He slammed into a wall and felt his ribs crack. When he opened his eyes, the world was on fire. Buildings collapsed everywhere. People screamed and ran in all directions. A second strike hit the residential district. Then a third hit the spaceport. The Volcari were not trying to capture the colony. They were destroying it. Dr. Kwon stumbled through the ruins of her medical center. The entire eastern wing had collapsed. She could hear people crying out for help from under the rubble. The boy with the broken arm lay nearby. He was not moving anymore. Neither was his mother. Yoonji fell to her knees and vomited. She forced herself to stand. People needed help. She was a doctor. She started pulling survivors from the wreckage with her bare hands. Her medical supplies were buried or destroyed. All she could do was basic first aid. There were so many injured. Too many. Minho dragged himself to his feet. His vision swam and blood ran down his face. He could see Volcari troop ships landing now. Soldiers in armor poured out and began moving through the streets. They were rounding up survivors. Anyone who resisted was shot immediately. He stumbled to the communication bunker. It was partially collapsed, but the equipment might still work. He had to warn Earth, had to tell someone what happened here. Minho crawled through the debris and found the emergency transmitter. His hand shook as he activated it. This is Corporal Han Minho of New Jeju Colony to any Earth station. We are under attack. The Volcari Empire attacked without warning. They killed thousands. They're still killing, please. They didn't negotiate. They didn't give us a chance. They just killed us. Please send static. The Volcari had jammed the signal. But maybe he got enough out. Maybe someone heard. Volcari soldiers kicked down the bunker door. Minho raised his hand slowly. They dragged him outside and threw him with the other survivors. He looked around at what remained of his home. Smoke filled the sky. Bodies lay everywhere. The beautiful colony he had sworn to protect was gone. A Volcari officer addressed the crowd of survivors through a translator. You will work for the Empire now. You will mine, farm, and build for us. Resist and die. Obey and live. This is the price of your weakness. Minho looked at the faces around him. Dr. Kwan was there, covered in blood and ash. Other people he knew. His neighbors. His friends. All of them broken and terrified. He felt something harden inside his chest. Not fear, not despair. Something colder. Something darker. He remembered the transmission he sent. If Earth received it, they would know what happened here. And the Volcari would learn what humanity did to murderers. The sun set over New Jeju that night. The colony burned beneath an alien sky, while survivors huddled together in camps surrounded by armed guards. 3,000 dead in the first hour. Hundreds more in the chaos that followed. All because the Volcari wanted to make a point about power. They had made their point. Now humanity would make theirs. The message from Corporal Han Minho reached Earth Defense Command 18 hours after the attack. It was broken and filled with static, but the words were clear enough. New Jeju Colony was burning. The Volcari Empire had attacked without warning. Thousands were dead. Admiral Song Hyok listened to the message 3 times in his office. Each time, his jaw tightened a little more. He was a career military officer who had served for 30 years. He had seen combat before. But this was different. These were civilians, families, children. He pulled up the colony records. New Jeju had a population of 43,000 people. It was one of humanity's most successful agricultural colonies. The file showed him pictures from last year's harvest festival. Smiling faces. Happy families. All of that was gone now. Song Hyok picked up his phone and called the civilian government. Sir, we need to talk about New Jeju, and we need to talk about war. Across Earth and all the human colonies, the news spread fast. Video footage from New Jeju's last moments had been automatically backed up to Earth servers. People watched in horror as the orbital strikes fell. They saw children running from the flames. They saw Volcari soldiers executing anyone who tried to fight back. The reaction was immediate and volcanic. Protests erupted in every major city. People demanded action. Not diplomacy. Not negotiation. Action. The civilian government held emergency sessions while military officers prepared fleet movements. Nobody talked about peace. Everyone talked about justice. At the Galactic Council Station, Ambassador Choi Daeho requested an emergency hearing. The council was the main governing body for this region of space. Dozens of different species met here to resolve disputes and maintain order. It was supposed to prevent exactly this kind of violence. The council chamber was a massive, circular room with representatives from 40 different species. Choi stood at the human podium and waited for silence. He was an older man with gray hair and calm eyes, But today, those eyes were hard as stone. 3 days ago, the Valkyrie Empire attacked New Jeju colony without warning or provocation. They killed over 3,000 civilians in the first strike. Many more have died since. I am here to demand justice. The Valkyrie representative, a tall reptilian creature named Ambassador Kelsch, rose from his seat. He did not look concerned or apologetic. He looked annoyed. The human exaggerates. New Jeju was asked to pay tribute to the Empire, as all worlds in that sector must do. They refused. We enforced our legal rights to that territory. Some casualties occurred during the enforcement action. This is regrettable, but not uncommon. Choi felt rage boil in his chest, but kept his voice level. You murdered 3,000 people as a demonstration of power. You attacked the civilian population without warning. You are still holding survivors as slaves. Kelsch waved a clawed hand dismissively. Again, the human exaggerates. They are not slaves. They are workers paying their debt to the Empire. This is standard procedure for territories that resist. Other council members began to speak. Most of them urged calm and patience. The Killen ambassador suggested forming a committee to investigate. The Drenth representative proposed mediated negotiations. The Haas councilor recommended that humanity pay a fine to the Valkyrie to resolve the matter quickly. Choi listened to all of them. He listened to species who had been in the galaxy for thousands of years explain to him how these things worked. Wars were expensive and messy. Better to negotiate. Pay some reparations. Adjust some borders. Everyone goes home happy. When they finished, Choi stood again. I appreciate the council's wisdom and experience. But I need to make something very clear. Humanity does not negotiate with murderers. The Valkyrie Empire has 72 hours to withdraw all forces from New Jeju and surrender every individual who gave orders during the attack. If they refuse, we will consider ourselves at war. The chamber erupted in chaos. War? Over one colony? Species were shouting over each other. The Killen ambassador looked horrified. Even friendly species like the Drenth seemed shocked. Kelsch stood and laughed. It was a harsh, barking sound. The human threatens war? Your species has been in space for 50 years. You control 7 systems. The Valkyrie Empire controls 40 systems and commands 3 times as many warships. You would be crushed in weeks. Choi looked directly at the Valkyrie ambassador. Then crush us. But know this. We will make you pay for every inch. We will make New Jeju look like a mercy. And when we are done, everyone in this galaxy will know what happens when you murder human children. The council chamber fell silent. Choi gathered his papers and walked out. Behind him, the other ambassadors began arguing frantically. Some called for sanctions against humanity for threatening war. Others demanded the Valkyrie stand down. A few species simply watched quietly, wondering what they had just witnessed. Back on Earth, Admiral Song Hyok received his orders directly from the civilian government. The message was brief and clear. Rules of engagement are lifted. Total war authorized. Make them remember this. Song Hyok began issuing orders immediately. The 3rd Defense Fleet would deploy within 24 hours. Every reserve ship was being activated. Marine battalions were mobilized. Fighter pilots were recalled from leave. Captain Lee Selman of the destroyer Indomitable received her deployment orders while visiting her family. She kissed her parents goodbye and headed back to her ship. Her mother asked if there would be a war. Selman looked at her mother and spoke the truth. Yes, and we're going to win it. Across human space, the same scene repeated millions of times. Soldiers reporting for duty. Ships launching. Weapons being loaded. Humanity was mobilizing for war faster than anyone thought possible. The Galactic Council sent urgent messages to Earth begging them to reconsider. Other species offered to mediate. Some offered financial compensation on behalf of the Valkyrie. A few even offered to pressure the Valkyrie into making concessions. Earth's response was the same to all of them: 72 hours. Then we come for them. The Valkyrie Empire watched these preparations with amusement. Humans were angry, but anger did not win wars. Numbers did. Technology did. Experience did. The Valkyrie had all three advantages. They began gathering their own fleets, confident that this would be a short war followed by a profitable peace treaty. They had no idea what was coming. Admiral Song Hyok stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the stars ahead. Somewhere out there was New Jeju. Somewhere out there were survivors waiting for rescue. And somewhere out there was an empire that thought humans would negotiate after watching their children burn. All ships prepare for jump, he ordered. We launch in 6 hours. Our mission is simple. Find the Valkyrie fleet. Destroy the Valkyrie fleet. Rescue our people. Show the galaxy what happens when you cross humanity. The countdown began. The war was coming. The Valkyrie Empire assembled 90 warships at the Threshold 9 system. It was a neutral zone between Valkyrie and human space, chosen specifically to show their strength. Commander Wrath himself led the fleet from his flagship, a massive dreadnought called the Conqueror's Pride. Wrath was confident. He had studied human military capabilities. Their ships were decent, but nothing special. Their weapons were standard. They had won a few small conflicts with pirates and minor species, but they had never fought a real galactic power. This would be a quick lesson in humility. His sensor officer reported contact. Human fleet detected. 37 vessels approaching. Wrath nodded. Outnumbered more than 2 to 1. The humans would see their disadvantage and open communications to negotiate. It always happened this way. Species talked tough until they saw real military power. Then they became reasonable. Open a channel, Wrath ordered. Let us hear what terms they propose. But the communication channel remained silent. Instead, Admiral Song Hyok gave his fleet a single order. All ships, weapons free. Show them what New Jeju cost them. The human fleet did not slow down. They did not form defensive positions. They accelerated directly at the Valkyrie formation and opened fire at maximum range. Missiles streaked through space. Energy weapons blazed. The battle began with no warning and no mercy. Wrath stared at his screens in confusion. Why are they attacking? We have not even talked yet. His tactical officer shouted a warning. Multiple missiles incoming. They're not slowing down. The first wave of human missiles slammed into Valkyrie ships. Shields absorbed most of the damage, but several vessels took hits. Wrath expected the humans to pause and reassess. Instead, they launched the second wave immediately. Then a third. Return fire. All batteries. Wrath ordered. The Valkyrie fleet responded with their own weapons. Space between the two fleets became filled with explosions and debris. But something was wrong. The humans were fighting with an intensity Wrath had never seen before. A human destroyer took heavy damage to its engines and began drifting. Wrath expected it to withdraw or signal surrender. Instead, it used its maneuvering thrusters to aim itself at the nearest Valkyrie cruiser and fired every remaining weapon. When those ran out, the captain gave one final order. For New Jeju, the destroyer rammed the Valkyrie cruiser at full speed. Both ships exploded in a massive fireball. Lieutenant Yunjiho flew his fighter through the chaos with his squadron. They were outnumbered 3 to 1 in fighters as well. His wingman was shot down in the first 2 minutes. Another squadron member took a direct hit and exploded. Blue Squadron, this is Blue Leader, Jiho called over the radio. Focus fire on that carrier. Don't stop until it's dead. His squadron screamed toward the Valkyrie carrier. taking fire from all directions. Jiho's fighter was hit and alarms blared in his cockpit. He ignored them. Half his squadron was gone now, but they were almost at the carrier. Blue 3 is hit. I'm going down. Blue 5, shields are gone. Jiho locked his missiles on the carrier's hangar bay and fired everything. Around him, the surviving members of his squadron did the same. The carrier's shields collapsed under the combined assault. Explosions rippled across its hull. That's for the children you murdered, Jiho shouted as he pulled away. Only 3 fighters from his squadron survived. They immediately turned and began another attack run. Major Kim Hana led her Marines in the most insane assault the galaxy had seen in centuries. Her battalion launched in boarding pods toward the Valkyrie flagship. Boarding actions were considered barbaric and outdated. Nobody did them anymore. They were rules about civilized warfare. Humanity did not care about those rules. The pods slammed into the Conqueror's pride and drilled through the hull. Marines poured into the Valkyrie ship and immediately began fighting. Hannah led from the front, her rifle barking as she cleared corridor after corridor. Valkyrie crew tried to seal bulkheads and trap the Marines. Hannah's people just blew through the bulkheads. They tried using gas to flush out the humans. The Marines switched to sealed armor and kept advancing. They tried to surrender deck by deck, but the Marines did not accept surrender. Keep moving, Hannah shouted to her troops. We take the bridge or we die trying. They fought deck by deck, room by room. Valkyrie soldiers had never experienced combat like this. These humans did not stop. They did not retreat. When wounded, they kept fighting. When cornered, they charged forward. Commander Vrath watched his fleet fall apart around him. 20 of his ships were already destroyed or disabled. The humans had lost 15, but they kept attacking with the same intensity. They fought like they had nothing to lose. All ships begin withdrawal. Vrath ordered. Fall back to an explosion rocked his flagship. Those insane human Marines had reached the reactor level. Alarms screamed throughout the ship. Abandoned ship. All hands abandoned ship. Vrath fled to an escape pod with his senior staff. As his pod ejected, he watched the Conqueror's pride explode from internal detonations. The Marines had sabotaged everything they could reach before the reactor went critical. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, only 12 Valkyrie ships escaped. 78 were destroyed or captured. The human fleet had lost 22 ships, but they had won a victory that shocked the entire galaxy. Admiral Song Haeok stood on his damaged bridge and surveyed the battlefield. His fleet was hurt but still functional. Around him, the wreckage of the Valkyrie Armada drifted in space. Send this message on all frequencies, he ordered. Broadcast it to every species in the galaxy. The message was simple. Just a video feed showing the burning remains of the Valkyrie fleet, and text that scrolled beneath it. This is what happens when you murder our children. New Jeju is avenged. But we are not finished. Every Valkyrie officer who gave orders at New Jeju will face justice. Every ship that participated will be destroyed. Every commander who allowed it will answer for their crimes. We do not negotiate. We do not forgive. We do not stop. The message reached the Galactic Council within hours. Species that had urged patience and negotiation watched in stunned silence as the footage played. The Valkyrie Empire, one of the major powers in this region, had just lost 80% of a major fleet. And humanity was promising to do more. The Killen ambassador spoke quietly to his aide. I told them humans were different. I told them to take the threat seriously. What are they? His aide asked. Something we forgot existed, the ambassador replied. A species that still remembers how to wage total war. On New Jeju, The surviving colonists heard about the battle through smuggled communications. Corporal Han Minho, still imprisoned with the others, allowed himself a small smile. Earth had heard their message, and Earth had answered. The Volcari High Command met in their capital city to discuss the disaster at Threshold 9. 78 ships lost. Thousands of crew dead. And the humans were still coming. The room was filled with angry voices and desperate suggestions. "We should offer peace terms immediately," one admiral suggested. "Give them reparations. Return their colonists. This war is costing us too much." The Supreme Commander, an old Velkari named Kreth, slammed his fist on the table. "We will not bow to these primitives. We are the Velkari Empire. We have ruled this sector for 300 years. And in 3 weeks, these primitives destroyed our largest fleet," another officer countered. "Perhaps we underestimated them." Kreth would not hear it. The Empire would offer a ceasefire, yes, but they would give minimal concessions. Maybe a few low-ranking officers to satisfy human bloodlust. Some monetary compensation, but the Empire would not admit defeat. The message was sent to Earth through diplomatic channels. The Velkari offered to negotiate. They would pay for damages to New Jeju. They would arrest some officers involved. They would even give humanity 2 uninhabited systems as compensation. Ambassador Choi Dao read the offer in his office at the Galactic Council station. Other ambassadors waited eagerly for his response. Surely humanity would accept. The offer was generous by galactic standards. Choi recorded his response personally. His face was calm, but his eyes were cold. "The Volcari Empire misunderstands the situation. We do not want your money. We do not want your territory. We want every individual who gave orders at New Jeju. We want the commanders who authorized the massacre. We want the Supreme Commander who allowed it. And we want the empire that created them to cease existing. Humanity does not negotiate with murderers. We remove them." The message broadcast across every galactic frequency. Species throughout the galaxy heard it and felt a chill. The humans were not going to stop. This was not going to be a normal war with negotiated peace. This was something else entirely. The Volcari Empire made their decision. They would fortify their borders and wait. Human anger would cool eventually. All wars ended in negotiation. They just needed to be patient. Commander Bae Woojin received very different orders. He captained a stealth ship called the Silent Vengeance, one of humanity's newest and most advanced vessels. His mission was simple: penetrate Velkari, space and hunt down the officers responsible for New Jeju. His intelligence officer was Specialist Oh Yuna, a young woman with a gift for finding information. She had spent 3 weeks analyzing every piece of data about New Jeju. She knew which ships had been there. She knew which officers had given orders. She had built a list. 73 names, she told Woojin. From Commander Vrath, who ordered the initial strike, all the way up to Supreme Commander Kreth, who authorized the operation. Every single one is on this list. Woojin studied the list carefully. Then we'll visit every single one. The Silent Vengeance slipped past Velkari border defenses like a ghost. Their stealth technology was far beyond what the Velkari expected. Within days, Woojin's team was deep in enemy territory. Their first target was Admiral Sheth, the officer who had commanded the ground forces at New Jeju. He was on a military station orbiting a Velkari colony world. Confident that he was safe behind layers of defenses, Woojin's Marines infiltrated the station during a shift change. They moved through the corridors in complete silence. Guards never saw them coming. Within 20 minutes, they had reached Admiral Sheth's quarters. The Admiral woke to find human soldiers standing over his bed. He tried to reach for a weapon. A Marine put a rifle to his head. "Admiral Sheth, you are under arrest for war crimes committed at New Jeju Colony. You're coming with us. You cannot do this. Sheth hissed. This is Valkyrie territory. This is an act of war. The Marines smiled without humor. We are at war. Now move or we drag you. They extracted Sheth from the station without firing a shot and disappeared back into space. The Valkyrie did not even know what happened until morning. This scene repeated across Valkyrie space. Officers disappeared from their homes. Commanders vanished from their ships. Base commanders were extracted from supposedly secure facilities. The humans did not attack military targets or colonies. They simply took the people on their list that the Valkyrie High Command panicked. How were humans penetrating so deep into their territory? How were they finding these specific individuals? They increased security. They moved targets to secret locations. Nothing worked. Specialist Oyuna tracked them all. She intercepted communications. She analyzed movement patterns. She predicted where targets would go before they got there. Every time the Valkyrie tried to hide someone, she found them. Target 47 just moved to a bunker on their fourth moon, she reported to Woojin. He thinks he's safe underground. Woojin plotted the course. Then we'll go dig him out. The galaxy watched in amazement as humanity conducted surgical strikes across dozens of light years. The Valkyrie Empire, once proud and mighty, could not protect its own leadership. Every day brought news of another officer captured or killed. The Galactic Council called emergency session after emergency session. Species demanded that humanity stop these illegal operations. Troy listened politely and ignored them all. They murdered our children, he said simply. Justice will be served. Some species began to reconsider their relationship with the Valkyrie. If the Empire could not even protect its own commanders, what good were their security guarantees? Valkyrie client states started declaring neutrality. All eyes began distancing themselves. The Valkyrie Empire was not just losing a war. It was collapsing from within. Supreme Commander Kreth fortified himself in the Imperial Palace on the Valkyrie homeworld. He surrounded himself with the best troops. He installed every security measure available. He would not be taken like the others. Commander Woojin studied the palace defenses from orbit. That is a very secure facility. Oh, Yuna nodded. 17 layers of security. Elite guards. Sensor nets. Anti-air batteries. Getting in will be difficult, but not impossible. She smiled. Nothing is impossible, Commander. They spent a week planning. The operation would be risky. Many Marines would probably die. But Kreth was the top name on the list. The one who had authorized everything. Woojin called for volunteers. Every Marine on his ship stepped forward. 3 months after New Jeju burned, the Valkyrie Empire was in ruins. Their fleet was scattered. Their leadership was being systematically captured. Their allies had abandoned them, and human forces were now approaching their homeworld. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Humanity did not fight wars the way other species did. They did not follow the rules. They did not accept negotiated half measures. When you crossed the line and harmed their innocent civilians, they came for you with absolute determination, and they did not stop until you were gone. Supreme Commander Kreth sat in his palace and waited for the humans to come. He knew they would. Everyone else on the list had been taken. He was the last one. He wondered if the Empire would survive this. He wondered if future generations would remember the Valkyrie as a cautionary tale. He wondered if murdering those humans at New Jeju had been worth it. Outside, in the darkness of space, human ships gathered. And somewhere among them, Commander Woojin prepared his Marines for their final mission. 6 months after the massacre at New Jeju, the war was over. The Valkyrie Empire no longer existed as a unified power. Some of their systems had been claimed by neighboring species. Others had declared independence. A few remained as small independent worlds with no central government. Every individual on Specialist Una's list had been captured or killed. Supreme Commander Kreth had been taken from his palace in a raid that became legendary across the galaxy. The human Marines had fought through 17 layers of security in a battle that lasted 6 hours. Kreth was now in a cell on Earth, waiting for trial. The trials were held publicly and broadcast across galactic networks. The courtroom was simple and plain. No grand speeches, no elaborate procedures. Just facts, evidence, and judgment. Corporal Ha Minho sat in the gallery and watched as Commander Vrath was brought before the judges. Minho had been rescued from New Jeju 2 months ago, along with the other survivors. He was thinner now, with scars on his arms and a hardness in his eyes that had not been there before. The prosecutor presented evidence. Video footage from New Jeju. Testimony from survivors. Communications records showing Vrath had ordered the orbital strikes personally. The commander had known exactly what he was doing. He had murdered civilians deliberately to make a point about power. Vrath's lawyer tried to argue that he was following orders, that this was normal military procedure for the Valkyrie, that by their standards, this was acceptable. The judge listened patiently, then spoke. "We are not judging you by Valkyrie standards. We are judging you by the standards of basic decency. You murdered 3,000 unarmed civilians. You targeted schools and hospitals. You executed people who tried to surrender. Whether your empire considered this acceptable is irrelevant. You are guilty." Vrath was sentenced to life imprisonment. No execution. No torture. Just the knowledge that he would spend his remaining years locked away, knowing that his actions had destroyed an empire. Minho watched as Vrath was led away. It was not enough. Nothing would be enough. But it was Justice Dr. Kwan Eunji attended the trials as well. She had testified about the medical nightmare in the hours after the attack, about the children who died in her arms, about the injuries that could not be treated because the Valkyrie had destroyed all her equipment. After the trial, she spoke with Minho outside the courthouse. "Does it help?" she asked. "Seeing them punished?" Minho thought about it. Not really. But it needed to happen anyway. They walked together in silence. Both of them carried scars that would never fully heal. But they were alive. And they had been avenged. The Galactic Council held an emergency session that would reshape galactic politics. Every major species sent their ambassadors. The chamber was packed with representatives, eager to hear what humanity would say now that the war was over. Ambassador Choi Daeho stood at the human podium. He looked tired. The last 6 months had aged him considerably, but his voice was still strong and clear. "Many of you have asked what humanity wants now. Some fear we will take Valkyrie territory. Some worry we will continue our military operations. Some wonder if we have become a threat to galactic peace." The chamber was silent. Every ambassador leaned forward to hear his words. "Let me be very clear about who we are and what we stand for. Humanity will never fire the first shot. We will negotiate any dispute in good faith. We will honor treaties and respect borders. We are not conquerors. We do not seek to rule other species." Relief washed through the chamber. Several ambassadors smiled and nodded. Then Choi's expression hardened. "But if you choose to murder our civilians, if you think we are weak because we are new to the galaxy, if you believe you can attack our innocent people and negotiate your way out of consequences, then you should remember New Jeju. Remember the Valkyrie Empire. Remember what happens when you cross the line we draw around our people." The chamber fell silent again. This was not a threat. It was a statement of fact. We do not seek war, but we will end any war that others start against us. We do not want conquest. But we will dismantle any power that commits genocide against humanity. This is not negotiable. This is not political. This is simply who we are." Choi paused and looked around the chamber. "Humanity offers friendship and cooperation to all species. We will contribute to galactic peace and prosperity. But we will also defend our people with absolute determination. Choose how you interact with us accordingly." He sat down. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some species were angry at what they saw as arrogance. Others were thoughtful, reconsidering their assumptions about humanity. A few simply nodded in understanding and respect. The Drenth ambassador approached Choi after the session. "That was quite a speech. You have made some species nervous." Choi smiled slightly. "Good. Nervous species tend to be more careful. And careful species to not murder civilians. What will you do with the former Valkyrie territories?" "Nothing. They are free to govern themselves or join other powers as they choose. We claim nothing from this war except justice for our dead." The Drenth ambassador studied Choi carefully. "Your species really is different. Most powers would have taken something. We took what mattered. We took the people responsible and made sure this would never happen again." Years passed. New Jeju was rebuilt slowly and carefully. The colony would never be what it was before, but it could be something new. A memorial garden was built in the center of the new settlement. Park Sumin, daughter of the late Governor Park Ji-won, stood in the memorial garden on the anniversary of the massacre. She had been off-world studying when the attack happened. Her mother and younger brother had died in the initial strikes. She planted a tree in the memorial garden, one of hundreds that had been planted by survivors and families of victims. The garden was always quiet. People came here to remember and to grieve. Sumin read the plaque that stood at the garden's entrance. They came in peace. They died in fire. They will never be forgotten. And they were avenged. Around her, humans and aliens both stood in respectful silence. The memorial had become a galactic landmark. Species from across known space came to pay their respects and to remember what happened when you crossed certain lines. A Drenth visitor asked his guide about the memorial. "Why do so many species visit here?" The guide, a human woman, answered quietly. "Because New Jeju changed everything. Before this, the galaxy operated on cold logic. Conflicts were negotiated. Everything had a price. But humanity showed the galaxy that some things cannot be negotiated. Some crimes cannot be compensated. Some lines should never be crossed. And the galaxy learned? The galaxy learned. In the years since New Jeju, conflicts against civilian populations have dropped by 80%. Not because of laws or treaties, but because everyone remembers what happened to the Valkyrie Empire." The Drenth visitor looked at the trees swaying in the breeze. So their deaths meant something. Their deaths should never have happened. But yes, they meant something. Corporal Han Minho, now Captain Han Minho of the Colonial Defense Force, visited the memorial on the same day each year. He walked through the garden alone and remembered faces of people he had known. His neighbors, his friends, people who had simply wanted to live in peace. He stood before the memorial plaque and spoke quietly. "We kept our promise. Every single one of them faced justice. The empire that killed you is gone. And the galaxy knows now. They know what happens when you hurt us." He saluted the memorial and walked away. Life continued. The galaxy turned. But some lessons were learned in fire and blood, and those lessons were never forgotten. In council chambers across the galaxy, a new saying had become common. Diplomats used it as a reminder when tensions rose. Military commanders referenced it when planning operations. It was whispered in 100 languages across 1,000 worlds. Never corner a human. Never harm their families. They do not negotiate. They do not forgive. They simply end you. Humanity had taken its place among the galactic powers, not through conquest or intimidation, but through an absolute commitment to protecting their own and an unbending will to seek justice when that protection failed. The galaxy had learned to respect that. More importantly, the galaxy had learned to fear what happened when that respect was not given. And in the quiet gardens of New Jeju, trees grew tall and strong, a living memorial to those who died and a permanent reminder of the price of crossing humanity's most sacred line. Peace reigned in the galaxy, not because everyone loved each other, but because everyone remembered what happened when you murdered someone else's children. And that memory kept the peace better than any treaty ever could.